Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to talk about distributed cognition, the value of an external mind in fast piano progress, and maybe even what the heck that means in general. So on this channel I hope to share with you strategies, mindsets, methods, and so on, often of my own creation, that hopefully will help you in your piano playing and hopefully other areas in your life as well. So recently I've become a pretty big fan of Getting Things Done by David Allen. I think a lot of you might know that entire productivity system, and it's really not just a productivity system. I think of it as an entire philosophy, and I'm honestly at this point not even implementing the entire system, but if you're curious, Getting Things Done, David Allen, I mean, it's been updated a few times. There are some other great books by him as well. It could make a very significant difference just to literally use that system, or you can use some aspects from it like I'm using right now. But I actually realize that there are many profound implications as applied to piano playing specifically, and that there are many parallels between the way that David Allen thinks of getting things done and the way that I think about my own learning methodologies. And one of the most interesting things was this idea of the external brain. And I think he describes it somewhat as, for instance, as we're going throughout our days, maybe we're a little bit disorganized, myself included, and sometimes things become so overwhelming that we just have to make a list. So we finally write things out, might be on a good old-fashioned list. It could be using some productivity software. Maybe you even use something more advanced like mind mapping like I do or something. But in any case, you write it down, perhaps it's just a simple list, and usually we feel better because we finally feel like we've captured some of the things that are in our minds that we couldn't even keep track of. And part of what he posits is that that's just a rookie move, really. Like, that's only a very small fraction of the things that are on your mind. You shouldn't only wait until you're completely overwhelmed. You actually should just write things down much more often, or even all the time. And I thought that this was very interesting because in my methods, there's a lot of writing things down. I talk about the writing of all fingering, the complete planning of musical detail. Some of them are kind of unpopular opinions, but to me it makes a great deal, it's always made a great deal of sense, and it makes even more sense now because it's basically freeing up our cognitive capacity, our mental capacity. The human brain is not very good apparently at remembering. Like if I ask you to remember 15 different things right now, we're naturally not so good at it. We're just not good at holding 15, 20, 25 things in our brains. But if we write it down, it's very, very easy to comprehend it. If we try to remember the 15, 20 different things, we just can't keep track of all of them at once. And in fact, it'll take up all of our brain power, even just trying to remember them. So we're really quite poor at this naturally. But what we are great at is seeing all these connections between different things. So if I were to write down those 15, 20, 25 things, even 100 things, and now I'm looking at it, not only can I keep track of everything and I no longer have that stress hanging over me, but I can also see, oh, wait a second, this thing over here that I wrote and this thing, I can see that there's a connection between them. I can see that there's a correlation between these different items rather. And if we've written things in our calendar, we look at what happened last week, we look at things a few weeks from now, almost inevitably we will, well, actually, I believe inevitably we will have ideas occur to us. We will have reminders occur to us. Oh, that's right. I should remember to call that person. I should start to take action on that next thing. Maybe you see correlations between the calendar and the list of things that you've written down. And we're just naturally good at being creative here. We don't even have to try to do it. If we write things down, those connections will occur to it. Like that's what the human brain is really, really powerful at doing. And such it is with strategy at the piano as well too. So if we look here briefly, one thing that I advocate is the writing of all fingering. I'm not even sure if that's the case here or not, but in this student music, I believe that pretty much all the fingering is written out. Some people might say it's a bit extreme. Why write out, every single fingering? Why write the redundant stuff? Well, in the time it takes for you to think about whether to write it, you might as well just write it super fast. You don't need a split second of wondering what the fingering is if you come back to it. Like for the student or for the beginner intermediate student particularly, this is quite a difficult piece most of the time. So they're going to have to spend some brain power remembering what the fingering is. And if they have it written, it won't take up any brain power really at all. That frees up more of their mind to think about other pianistic things. And then I won't go too deep into it in this video because I've talked about it in many others. But for instance, this means that the student has done what I call a one measure separate hand set. In this case, a one measure right hand set because it's written above the right hand, which means they've played one measure plus the following beat, right? These 4 notes plus this 5th note. And they've done that to quality. And this is just keeping track of the fact that they've done that. And that's something that, as far as I know, I haven't even encountered other systems where they are writing things down and keeping track of the work that's been done so far. So this tells me at a glance that the student's done right hand first beat to first beat over here, right hand first beat to first beat over there. Apparently they have a question mark, so they're confused about something else. And then over here, I can also see that the student's written right hand, or they've practiced right hand perfectly from first beat to first beat in each instance, first beat to first beat over here. Now, why is this important? Let me see. Maybe there's not a lot of other markings on this one, but let's say hypothetically that here, that the student had written something like this, or I'd written something like this. This would tell me that they play the left hand from here to there, or the left hand from here to there. If, let's say, I guess it's reset, but that's okay. Or let's say another example. Let's say that we have something like this. This, using my notation, would tell us that they played half a measure plus the following beat. Or here, again, from this point, half a measure plus the following beat with the left hand alone. Or another example would be, let's say that I wrote this 2 over here. Perhaps, in this case, with these brackets, this would mean they played 2 measures plus the following beat perfectly. And why is this important? This is a lot of information to keep in our brains. If I had to remember this, oh yeah, right hand is a one measure, played this measure plus the following beat perfectly. And then left hand, you played from here to here perfectly and here to here perfectly. And then also we played both hands from here to there perfectly. You can see how quickly it would be difficult, or it would be easy rather, to lose track of what it is that we're doing. But if we write this out, naturally, we've freed up much more of our cognitive load, our cognitive capacity, to use higher order strategy. Because as some of you may know, using spaced repetition, as I talk about on the channel, we may come back and we may expand these smaller areas like these half measure sets into ones. We may expand ones into twos. We may transition from separate hands into both hands playing. And in order to utilize more complicated strategy and decision making, we want to have a way to keep track of our work. And this is, in my mind, distributed cognition. You've distributed some of your brain power that you would have had to use onto the page. By writing it out, that no longer takes up so much of your mental capacity. So then you can actually think like, oh, maybe it would be good to solve all the right hand 2 measure sets from here to there, 2 measures plus the following beat. Or maybe I could try to start doing separate hand sets. Maybe I could try to do right hand alone here to here, left hand alone here to here. Oh, and looking at these markings, I see an opportunity. Maybe over here I can start doing right hand from here to there, right hand from here to there. So as we become more sophisticated in strategy and in our thinking, this is the sort of concept that really can be a game changer. And I know it was for me too, because originally this notational system I only used for my students because I thought I didn't need it. I thought I have a good memory. Obviously, I just have to choose something that's difficult for me in the same way that those pieces are difficult for those students. And then once I wrote out the notation, and of course, like sometimes I could play 4 measures plus the following beat with no problem from memory. Sometimes I could do 8 measures in the following beat from memory, for instance, if I'm trying to learn the piece. Other areas, maybe it's hard to remember the first time through. So I can only do 2 measure sets, which is 2 measures plus the following beat in my methodology. Or I can only do 1 measure sets the first time through. And because I've written it down and I've written all the fingering, I can see immediately at a glance what it is I've done the time before. And now, after some spacing in between, there will be strategy that just naturally occurs to me. I'll see, for instance, a pair of 4 measure sets next to each other, and I'll see opportunity. I'll be able to link that into an 8 measure set, for instance. Or perhaps I'm starting to get rather tired, and I'm thinking, I have a limited amount of energy, and solving these large sets is really getting rather tiring. And so then I'll scan the document, and because I've written things down, because I have an external brain in the fact that these markings are written there, and I don't need to use my actual brain so much in order to remember what it was that I've done, I'll notice that further on in the piece, there are very simple, tiny little areas, and maybe I could just expand them a little bit more. Something that takes a very small amount of energy, and just by scanning the document, I'll see that opportunity. But had I not written things down, especially if I were tired, I wouldn't see that chance, and maybe I would just stop practicing at that point because I've already run out of willpower. So anyway, this is honestly new thinking that I'm doing. I feel like I had some little mini epiphanies recently. I hope you find this interesting. Let me know what questions you have. Are you writing things down? Are you keeping track of your work in terms of the sections that you've played perfectly smoothly? And do you feel like some of these ideas hopefully would be able to help you to use higher order strategy, which is just something that's not talked about very often? Let me know your thoughts and let me know your questions. And yeah, if you found this valuable, please like, subscribe, let other people know about the channel, and looking forward to the next one.